There is something rotten in the Integrity Commission. In the middle of last month, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett and Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, respectively the leader of government business in the House of Representatives and the leader of government business in the Senate, wrote to the new chairman of the Integrity Commission, retired Justice Mrs. Carol Lawrence Beswick. They did so to express concern about the appointment of one Ronif Lawrence to act in the position of Director of Corruption Prosecution, consequent on the expiry of the contract of Ms. Keisha Prince Kamika. Concern was also expressed over the non-renewal of Prince Kamika's contract in circumstances where there was reason to believe that she had come under pressure not to seek a renewal because of some lawful decision she had made. The Integrity Commission, hereinafter referred to as IC, is a public body established in 2017 to prevent corruption in the award of public contracts and corruptions by civil servants and parliamentarians. The last two are required to make annual declarations of assets and to explain any accession to wealth inconsistent with the pay grade of their public position. Any breach of the provisions of the Act would be reported to a committee of Parliament and could be referred to the relevant police department for prosecution. The expressed concern with Ronif Lawrence comes against the background of two things. One, the attempt by the Integrity Commission to have Prime Minister Holness prosecuted for breaches of the Integrity Act, and two, against the background of the release of information about IC investigations to PNP General Secretary Dayton Campbell before the report was tabled in Parliament. That release was done in breach of Section 53 of the Integrity Act, which states, until the tabling in Parliament of a report under Section 36, all matters under investigation by the Director of Investigations or any other person involved in such investigation shall be kept confidential, and no report or public statement should be made by the Commission or any other person in relation to the investigation or conduct of an investigation under this Act. These issues had arisen under the stewardship of the former chairman Seymour Panton, and it is not clear that he had done anything about them. The new chairman dismissed the letter in terms of normal litigation by writing that before an investigation could be commenced, there was need for specific questions, which had been posed, but that equally important, there was need for specific, cogent information from which the investigation could be commenced. She said she had no information about complaints from Keisha Prince Kamika, nor any information about an IC officer resigning over the omission of her comments from the IC report to Parliament. That officer had been critical of the questionable approach taken by Kevin Stevenson in his investigation of Holness, and she had put her comments in writing. One would have expected an incoming chairman to declare an intention to execute her office without fear or favor, and to take to heart the concerns raised by the people's representatives, but she chose instead to wash her hands like Pontius Pilate and was praised in a Gleaner editorial. Any close examination of the events leading up to the letter from Bartlett and Johnson-Smith must convince any fair-minded person that there is something rotten in the Integrity Commission. The smell of rot came out late in 2024 when Dayton Campbell at a PNP meeting announced that 6 members of the ruling party in the House were being investigated for illicit enrichment, and another PNP leader confidently declared that certain things were coming to light that would force the ruling party into a general election. The smell grew stronger when in January a social media clip began to do the rounds, with Dayton Campbell proclaiming his 20-year friendship with Lawrence and his presence as the best man at his wedding. Those remarks did not smell well. The foolish Brockhart was telling the world, as we say in Jamaican Creole, "Me control one of the man them in there." That would make Lawrence unsuitable to fill the post, as it is possible that he had been the source of that leak. The vacancy for the post of Director of Corruption Prosecution came up when Keisha Prince Kamika's contract was not renewed upon expiry. She's a professional with a good reputation who had been seconded from the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. It is not unusual for such a contract to be renewed. And what gave the matter an unpleasant odor was that it came out that she had been advised that she should not apply, and that if she did, her application would not be accepted. What could this qualified and professional public servant have done to make her odious to the power brokers in the commission? She had dismissed as having no legal merit the demand by the Director of Corruption Investigation, Kevin Stevenson, that Prime Minister Andrew Holness be prosecuted for a breach of the Act because of 4 inconsequential savings accounts that had been left out of his declaration of assets. They involved small sums of money in joint accounts, one held with his mother, another with his father, and yet another with his constituents. It was not clear from the evidence that his name was on all the accounts or if they had been omitted with intent to deceive. The Prime Minister put the matter before the court for judicial review. Presented with a perfectly reasonable request from the parliamentarians, the chairman, instead of promising to investigate, chose to grandstand and dismiss. This must be worrying to those of us who believe in the Integrity Commission. And the statement she made when appointed did not give the public any assurance of her commitment to fairness and objectivity. She launched a broadside at the Parliament to warn the members that if they ever dared to attack her office, they should make sure that they had supporting facts. Behold the ghost of Seymour Panton, who in his last appearance before the Parliamentary Oversight Committee chose to scold and insult rather than to just simply deliver a report. Not all the perfumes of Arabia could have helped the Commission to smell sweet after a letter recently appeared on social media, written to the chairman by a private citizen to call into serious question the conduct of Kevin Stevenson. That letter alleged that Stevenson conducted his investigation in a way that breached the provisions of the Integrity Act in what has to be his obsession to implicate the Prime Minister in wrongdoing, even when the evidence does not support his mission. Stephanie Fidler Blake became so upset by Stevenson's conduct that she put her concerns in writing and then resigned when they were left out of the Commission's report. It is frightening to think how such a meritless prosecution could have impaired the Prime Minister's ability to conduct international relations and manage the affairs of our country. The new chairman, it seems, has not come to do justice and is willing to hide behind legal technicality so that possibly politicians in the Commission can continue their conspiracy against Prime Minister Holness. Mrs. Lawrence Beswick, it seems, felt free to ignore the possibility of undue influence on Ranulph Lawrence by the braying Dayton Campbell, and blithely declared that if caught in a conflict of interest, he could recuse himself. Yes, recuse himself after breaking the terms of the Integrity Commission Act and setting up the damage to be done. Good sense and fairness surely require the chairman to interview Prince Kamika, Stephanie Fidler Blake, and Kevin Stevenson. Social media recently reported, and I cannot believe that this is true, that someone in the IC sought to pour gas on the fire by writing on its website earlier this year, PNP appalled at the Holness conflict of interest allegations. There is, of course, a long history in this country of the PNP inserting their middle-class allies into public office to carry out a political agenda while wielding a sword of unimpeachable integrity that is used to cut anyone who dares to question anything that has the smell of party bias. No one put the case better than the former MP for South East St. Ann, who in the course of a party meeting declared how the PNP pads public offices. Quote, they asked us to set up a civic committee, and we called it a civic committee, but I make sure that every one of them is PNP because we have an agenda. Let me repeat. They asked us to set up a civic committee, and we called it a civic committee, but I make sure every one of them is PNP because we have an agenda. There is something rotten in the Integrity Commission.